Hello everybody, this is Donnie with Pvgna.com. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'll be back in January, and then I'll actually be going to the Captain's Draft LAN in DC, so hopefully I'll see some of you there. I'll be doing some content while I'm at the LAN itself, so look out for that on our YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook social media channels. And I just wanted to wish you guys a happy holidays and let you know that there are still 9 or 10 days left to enter our holiday giveaway. The link is in the description below. You can still enter to win one of the 3 Arcanas that we're giving away, as well as potentially a month of Pvgna Pro so that you can grind those new medals in that MMR. Speaking of MMR, I think today's video is going to be pretty interesting to a lot of you out there. So let's just get right into it. Today's video will be about finding your role in the game of Dota. What is the best role for you to play? And how do you figure that out? There's plenty of guides out there on how to climb MMR and how to climb the ranks of Dota 2. And most of these guides will suggest that you play either mid or carry exclusively to climb MMR. And I think a lot of people have subscribed to this idea, whether they discovered it themselves or read about it on Reddit or heard it from a coach or whatever. But I personally believe that the best role for you to play, the best role for you to gain MMR with, is the one that you enjoy the most. And I think that there's some data to back that up as well. Yes, you do have a lot of the quote-unquote best players in the world being mid and carry players. You know, you've got the Arteezes, Sumails, Miracles, etc. But I believe that those players got to be as good as they are because they enjoyed the game, not because of the role that they were playing. And this last year in Dota has sort of expanded a lot of people's horizons, I think. You've got players like GH and Yapzor and Saksa who have totally excelled in the support role and translated that to great success in the professional circuit. And who really knows whether these players would have been as good as they are had they played mid or carry instead. But the point is that it is possible to achieve a high level of success in any role that you choose to play. And I think it's pretty clear in all 3 of the pros that I mentioned that these players love what they do. They love their role, they love the heroes that they play, and that is why they're so good at them. There's no denying that the top player in each region on the current leaderboards is a core player. However, if you look at the top 10 in each region, you will notice that there are supports and offlaners mixed in. So I think it's time to shift the discussion from what is the best role to climb MMR with to what is the best role for me? What is the best role for me to climb MMR with? And the following question would be, how do I figure that out? How do I find what role I like the most? The short answer is obviously going to be you have to play every role and you have to play each role a number of times. However, I wanted to sort of present a series of characteristics that I think each role has and what type of people might gravitate towards those particular aspects of the game. Because each role is responsible for different things and requires different skill sets to be good at. So let's just get right into each one. And I'm going to go backwards in the progression of numbers. So we're going to start with position 5 support and move all the way up to carry. So what makes a good position 5 support? Position 5 is definitely the most avoided role in pubs. Hardly anybody is actively looking to play position 5 because the perception is that when you play position 5, the game is sort of out of your hands once it gets to a certain point, and that basically it's up to you to sort of get your carry to a point where they might be able to win the game. But other than that, you don't have a whole lot of purpose. But I personally think that position 5 is actually probably the highest skill role in Dota because you have to do the most with the least resources. Your job is to be better than the other team despite having way less farm than them. And while the heroes that you play might not be the most mechanically challenging, I'm looking at you, Ogre Magi, the fact that these heroes need to be in and around the fight to save their teammates or initiate or counter-initiate, and they don't necessarily have the survivability tools to do so, means that you as a player need to be extremely good at positioning, extremely good at map awareness, extremely good at game sense to be in the right place at the right time. And this requires you to be very efficient in terms of your movement around the map, in terms of your health and mana conservation, and the way that you spend your gold. Because you don't have a lot of it to go around, your itemization needs to be on point, and you have to make sure that you're still providing your team with resources like vision and smokes and detection. So the type of person who should play this role is somebody who enjoys the challenge of doing a lot with very little, and enjoys being able to spend some time looking at the minimap because you're not super focused on CS. And this also means that you should probably be pretty good at communication with your team, because you're going to be the one that's gathering the most information. You're walking around the map, you're providing vision, you're probably going to be the first one to respond when one of your teammates is in trouble. And this actually can be pretty fun, because you get to be the one that gets to turn around ganks. You get to frustrate the enemy team. You get to see them going on your mid player and show up just in time to either save them or turn around and get some counter kills. And this is one of the fastest ways to get farm as a position 5 support. You consistently show up at the right time, and you get these counter kills on their carry and mid players who are significantly higher level and higher net worth than you, and you get a massive kickback from those kills. As a position 5 player, your job is really to predict the future. You need to look at the map, look at your draft, and figure out where your team is weakest, and then position yourself and itemize and provide vision in ways that makes this weakness stronger. Position 4, also known as the roamer, is sort of the opposite of the position 5 in this respect. As a position 4 roamer, your job is to look at the map and look at the enemy team and figure out where they are weakest and attack that weakness. At least in the current meta, the position 4 roamer is the one that creates chaos on the map. They're the ones that are looking for fights, they're poking and prodding at the enemy team and trying to find the weakness and then exploit that weakness in the form of kills or objectives as quickly as possible. As a roamer, you kind of have some overlap with the position 5. You do need to show up for fights with your team, and you also are providing vision and information. But you are trying to use that information in a more aggressive manner than the position 5 using that information in a more defensive manner. If you want to become a better roamer, you need to practice things like warding and dewarding and playing off the map in the fog, not being in vision, as well as timing. You need to time your movements with the power spikes of your teammates as well as your own. When you move around the map, it still needs to be efficient. You can't just walk back and forth from top to bottom and hope that you're going to win the game. You need to be going to places with a purpose, and you usually need to be the one who goes in first and starts the fight. Teamfighting in Dota has evolved a lot recently, and is now in a place where there's usually an initiator and also a counter initiator on most teams. So somebody jumps in, and then the enemy team reacts to that, and then there's a secondary initiation or counter initiation after that by another player on the same team. And this topic segues nicely into the offlane role. A lot of the traditional offlane heroes are really, really good counter initiators. You've got Axe and Magnus, Tide, Enigma, Void. All of these heroes are very good when the enemy team is bunched up. And the best way to get the enemy team to bunch up is to have them react to an initiator when they're trying to save a teammate who's being gone on. Offlane players are also those who really enjoy the challenge of dealing with hard lanes. As an offlaner, generally your role is to be annoying. You're supposed to be in the offlane, harassing the carry, occupying the time of the supports, and keeping them from roaming to the other lanes. If you can do these things successfully, you set up your team with a pretty good advantage in the laning stage. The trade-off, though, is that you're going to have to get used to having bad lanes. You're going to get harassed, you're going to have to avoid tilting when all of your creeps are getting denied in front of you, and you'll probably end up getting killed a couple of times. The best offlaners are those that can have really, really bad lanes, but then efficiently find farm and find enough items to be relevant in the game. And this usually needs to be done in the downtime between fights, because as an offlaner, usually you provide a lot of team fight presence. So you're going to have to show up for fights. You're going to have to help your team push objectives, but you're also going to have to be able to get enough farm to still be a core on your team. I find that I personally have a lot of success in the offlane when I'm able to keep my tower alive, even in a really, really bad laning situation, where I can keep pulling the creeps off of it and then farming my jungle and just keeping the tower alive long enough where it becomes frustrating to the enemy team. You might be getting dominated in lane, but If you can keep them from just steamrolling you and then killing your tower and moving on to the next one, you actually take up a lot of space on the map where they're continually dedicating a lot of resources to failing to push you out of the lane and failing to claim this big area of the map for themselves. As an offlaner, you need to be able to judge the game and itemize accordingly. There will definitely be games as an offlaner where you just don't have enough farm to be a true core, and so you have to be very, very conscious of the state of the game and what you need to have impact in it. Moving on to the mid lane. Mid lane is probably the most popular role in Dota. It's the one where the most people fight over it in the pub picking screen, and everybody wants to be the playmaker. They want to be important. They want to have the most control over their own destiny, as it were. Mid laners tend to be players who want to kind of flex their mechanics. They want to outplay one other person across the lane from them. And the good mid laners tend to be the ones who can use their mechanical advantage over their opponent and snowball that into a big experience and item lead that they can then use to influence the rest of the game. As a mid laner, you need to have very good map awareness because you tend to be the biggest target for the enemy team. So mid laners need to be able to deal with pressure. A lot of the best mid laners in professional Dota tend to be the ones that are recklessly aggressive, but mechanically skilled enough and quick thinking enough to get themselves out of situations that they oftentimes put themselves in with their aggressive play. And this is an important point to stress because as a mid laner, you usually come out of the laning stage with an experience and gold lead, which means that every time that you die, you're giving the enemy team a pretty big boost in both categories. So in addition to mechanics and map awareness, you also have to have a good game sense of the power spikes and how strong you actually are. We've all had that experience in a game where your mid laner is snowballing really hard and then they dive too far because they think they're stronger than they are, and they die to the enemy carry or the enemy mid player and feed them a big streak of gold, and suddenly the game is way harder than it used to be. There are definitely some mid lane heroes that are not super aggressive ones and are more of space takers than space creators. But even in these cases, the mid player is still the one who needs to be really aware of the map and aware of when they can and can't be aggressive. Being efficient in your movement is another thing that mid laners need to be really aware of. If you leave your mid lane tower undefended, there's a very good chance that you will lose it early, and this allows the enemy team to have a big map control advantage in one of the most important sections of the map. Finally, let's close this video out with a little discussion of the carry role. Position 1, or carry, is another one of the highly contested roles in pubs, again because people feel like it gives them the most control of their own destiny. People like doing a ton of damage, they like having a bunch of items and feeling like a god in fights. But getting to that point is a whole nother story. Carry players need to have really good last hitting mechanics. There's a good chance their team is spending quite a bit of resources and time on securing their farm, and so they need to take advantage of that by collecting as much gold as quickly as possible. Another underrated thing that really good carry players do is that they provide a lot of stability for their team. Regardless of how the other lanes are going, it's pretty comforting to know that your carry is free farming in theirs. What they do with this farm, however, is what really separates a great carry player from everybody else. Knowing when to fight, when to farm, and when to push are all things that a carry needs to have in their mind. Like the mid lane example, there's nothing worse than a farmed carry showing up to a bad fight and feeding away their big net worth and experience advantage. So being calm and collected and logical and objective in your view of the game as a carry player is something that's going to serve you very well. But there is a lot of pressure to the carry role. You do need to perform, you do need to take advantage of the space that your team is making for you, and there will even be times where you need to make space for your team by split pushing or even sometimes being sacrificed in the laning stage if there is a more important hero or more important lane. Great carry players develop very efficient farming patterns, and they use their good game sense to know where it is safe to farm and where they should avoid. And that's really what it comes down to as a carry player. Having good game sense, developing a feel of how the pace of the game is going and how strong you are in relation to all the other heroes on the map. And then being able to either seek out or avoid conflict based on that sense. So in the next 5 to 10 games that you play, try to be aware of the kinds of things that you're focusing on. Are you a good last hitter? Are you really good at reading map movement? Do you like creating chaos on the map, or are you really good at empowering your teammates and keeping them safe? And then also be aware of the heroes that you really enjoy playing and what sort of play style those heroes tend to fit into. You may find yourself feeling like you need to play mid or carry because you're on a losing streak or you're the highest MMR on the team, but maybe you really enjoy just running around ganking other lanes or playing 1v3 and dominating the carry. And you'll notice that there is some overlap in every single one of these roles. There are skills that apply to each one of them, so if you don't get your preferred role, go into a different one with an open mind and maybe even the intent to practice the skills that translate from the current role into the one that you wish that you were playing. You can still develop good game sense playing a position 5 support that you can then apply to using as a carry. So that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sorry this one was a little bit longer than usual. There was a lot of information to cover. I'm going on holiday, so there probably won't be a whole lot more content until the new year, but I would love to hear what you all think about this topic and what your preferred role is and why you prefer that particular role. So leave us a comment below and let us know what you want us to cover next. All right, everybody, have a great holiday season. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun.